Welcome to One Vlog Podcast. Positive content for a positive planet to help you improve your physical, mental, and inner spiritual well-being. We are one. Hey, how's it, everybody? This is Michael Julian with One Vlog Podcast. Live it stoked and live it stoked mind waves. Blessings and welcome to One, where the whole focus here is to provide enriching content, positive content, to provide people information on how to improve their physical health, their mental health, and what I call their inner spiritual well-being. And today I have an honor and a pleasure of having a very close friend named Deep Sea on One. Deep and I have known each other for quite some time, almost over 25 years now. Can believe that, when we were actually setting up this episode of One, and thought that Deep would be a perfect person to bring on the vlog in the event that he was interested in the concept and he loved the concept. So we set up the vlog, and Deep Sea is a versatile electric musician who embraces several genres. And Deep and I met years and years ago in the music scene in Boston in the singer-songwriter circle end of things, as we were playing clubs and bars in Boston. He's born and raised in South India and hails from the Kodava community. And Deep moved to Boston 27 years ago from India, but was playing music very seriously in India when he lived there. I was playing drums and progressed lead vocals. And he was also drawn to rhythm and also played the Epiphone in high school with his band. And as that developed, he did form a cover rock band in India called the Unknowns in Bangalore. They played 60s, 70s, and 80s era rock and roll. And the band recorded an original album in 1992 called Let the Good Times Rock. The most amazing thing is that Deep wrote and co-wrote most of the songs, and he teamed up with a producer and also sung jingles for commercial radio and TV in India. It was pretty cool. And after landing in Boston, he realized that he was soon going to have a paying job, as trying to support his way of life, his living, and potentially a future family music was not going to be the path. Went into social work, which I find a blessing, and I'm very enamored of Deep in terms of what he does, in terms of working for a nonprofit in Boston. It's called Partners for Youth with Disabilities. And not too long ago, just about 2 years ago, I had the opportunity. I was back in Massachusetts, and I was going through some changes to come back here to Costa Rica. And I actually connected with Deep, and it was quite a special time and event based on the fact that we hadn't seen each other in quite some time. And I actually went in with him to Boston to his work while he was working with youth and young adults who have a multitude of disabilities. So it was absolutely a blessing to accompany him and to see the hard work and the effort that he puts into helping those folks in Boston. The vocation has been his longest venue working for a nonprofit, and he coordinates teaching theater with music, group mentoring programs that benefit youth that have challenges with social communication and emotional disabilities or emotional skills. And at the same time, he actively supports his own music career and family, which is quite an undertaking, to say the least. And during the time that I was hanging out with Deep, it was really brilliant. It was all this beautiful timing in that I was catching up with him in terms of what he was doing with his music career. And he had started a new band with some members in the band, one of which, Paul Ehrlich, has been a friend of mine as well for many, many years, and was recording a new album. And I love the idea of getting together with him on a musical level. It was just really kind of difficult. And as things kind of sussed out, it turned out that he had a gig at the Burn in Davis Square, and we got together. I went to a rehearsal, we hung out, and I watched Deep work through his songs with his band. And at one point they were like, "Hey man, do you want to come and sing some backline with us at the show?" And I was like, "Oh, I'd be honored." So I just kind of started singing tunes during that rehearsal, and it worked out famously. And we ended up hanging out that night, which was a really, really good time. But his journey as a singer-songwriter has been creative and progressive. His American stint began as a lead singer and songwriter for a Boston-based goth metal band called Sift. So from 1995 to 1998, He played several venues, including Mama Kin, The Rat, Middle East, TT and the Bears, and even CBGB's in New York, just to name a few, which are really, really cool venues. These are all historical venues from the past in Boston, where some big hitters play or did play. And so we got a little background noise here. I'm in Playa Hermosa, Costa Rica, and we've got a rainstorm moving in, so we're going to have to compete a little. But I'm absolutely blessed and honored to have Deep on. He's a very versatile musician and an extraordinary individual in that being from India and then moving to the States and being in America and then taking on social work as a career is really amazing and interesting to me in that in so many ways, the vlog and the whole message of One, Deep kind of personifies the whole concept of One, because a lot of the young adults in his group, come from all different sects, and he's basically dealing with many areas of the world in terms of work and trying to assist other human beings during his daily practice. So I just thought it would be rad to have him on. So without further ado, Deep, how you doing, brother? How are things in Massachusetts for you?
Hey, Michael, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here. And hey, right now, a storm is coming in. We've had rain all day, but we could use the rain because it helps the water table. So yeah, I'm doing well, and it's, again, honor to be here.
Right on, right on. Well, it's just rain, huh? You're not getting any snow yet?
Nope, it's just a rainstorm. They talked about a 50-mile wind, so
Oh,
that
wow.
makes me a little nervous.
Yeah,
Like it's a storm.
right on. Well, I have to be honest, brother, I don't miss it.
Oh, you know what? I wish we could switch places. I'm a tropical boy, so I know the feeling. I'd rather be around the sun all the time.
Yeah, right on. Well, you know that it was something I absolutely had to do just physically based on what goes on with my spinal
Better
cord.
for your health. Absolutely, I get it.
It wasn't conducive for me to be in the cold anymore. It turns me into a 190-year-old man.
Right, right.
Uh,
Absolutely.
can't say that being here in Costa Rica doesn't have challenges. The humidity level here really does it too. So
Right.
there's nowhere for me to run, Deep. Find it. I can't find it. So I settled for Costa Rica, which is a blessing. What do you
It's a beautiful island, so I wish you chose the right place.
Well, you realize, we're not actually an island, but we are peninsulate, but we have little parts that you could call islands around us, I guess.
Right.
But,
beautiful country, needless to say.
Right on, man. Well, talk to me a little bit, man. I wanted people who are watching the vlog to first understand who you are as a musician, and to talk to us just a little bit about your new album and how that came about. And it's done so well. It's been phenomenal, man. Congratulations in terms of the accolades that it's received. And I loved the material, obviously. I mean, doing that one show with you was a hoot. That was a really good time. But just tell folks watching the vlog how it came to be. How did you come up with the concept for this record and this band?
Well, so just like you, I was sort of hanging out in the open mic scene, and I decided to. I always wanted to have a rock band because that's where my roots were, and of course, teaming up with Paul Ehrlich, as you know, phenomenal guitar player. I think Paul was really behind me because he just realized that I was writing all these songs, and he found my music to be sort of interesting enough, alternative, definitely. He just felt like the songwriting was strong there, and I got better over the years. And yeah, this EP, our last EP, We Are All Americans, the two songs in that definitely has a political feel to it. But again, I always feel like, as much as I don't want to talk about politics, I also feel like, politics, it's important to bring us together because, America is such a unique country. People from all cultures live here. And there's nobody, I mean, like, I've lived in India where it's just Indians, but coming to America and meeting people from all over the world, It's what makes this country so unique. And I think my whole idea of writing those songs, I wrote this song because the two songs I wrote, In the Bubble and We Are All Americans, I wrote it 4 years ago when Hillary Clinton did not win. And I just felt like America was ready for a change to have a woman president. Anyways, I'm not going to go delve into that, but that's how those two songs came about. And then it's just a question of, I've written so many songs in the last 10 years, probably over 100 songs. We just had to choose the 5 songs which made the EP. And also I sort of delved into different styles because I always feel like I love so many different styles of music. And I felt like the 5 songs just brought it together. The songwriting really all was about politics, about love, about the planet, and my feelings about what this world is all about and what it means to me living in America.
Right on, right on. Well, it was one thing that really impressed me about the record when you gave it to me and when I was listening to it in the studio and getting ready to try to sing some backline with you was that it was such a crock pot of styles, I mean, some of it's feels a little classic rock and some of it, I mean, you even had a punk rock song in there. You had, it's
everything, little for everybody.
Right.
Well, if you were a kid, you obviously started off with punk rock and then you graduated to classic rock, and and the older you got into soul and the blues and R&B and funk, and there's so much out there. But you always have, I feel like as a songwriter, you always have to be conscious of what you're doing because you don't want to show people that you can do it all. There has to be a thread between all the songs, and you also have to work on your sound. And that's something 20 years I've spent trying to work on a certain sound and not try to sound like anybody else.
Right on, right on. It's a hard thing to accomplish, but you are a marvel in that, 100 songs, brother.
Probably over.
Pumping your muscles in terms of songs.
Well,
they really.
I just feel like I think it's a good way for me to, I feel like there's so much going on in this world, and I think songwriting is just a good way for me to just express my feelings. And most songs are not really about. Most songs are really about everything which happens around the planet. It's not really about what's happening here. I'm always writing global songs because I lived in 2 continents, and I feel like I've taken the energy from 2 continents. But America is my home right now.
Right. Right on. Well, it's obvious that as musicians faced with the challenges of what we're dealing with in terms of social distancing and COVID and being cooped up, thank goodness we have this craft to rely on.
Right.
Give us activity, give us something to do,
Absolutely.
But I'm really, I'd love it if you told everybody, when you and I reconnected and we started to talk about you coming on One, what was it that made you, want to come on and do this? What was it that piqued your interest about the project?
I feel like one is such a powerful word, and the connection people have, it's really like what you're doing is an amazing thing because it's really important for people to connect with each other, and most people don't want to do it. Just think about what's going on. You can be in a room and there can be 10 people with their cell phones and everybody's on their phone. Nobody's interacting with each other. So I feel like when you gave me this opportunity, I was like, this is it. You have to be able to express what is the best thing, not just for you, but hopefully for everybody in the world, because we as a human race, you know what I'm saying? We are bound to each other. We have so much, we are the top of the food chain right now, and we can do so much by coexisting with each other. And I felt like what you were saying it's a very, very important topic, and not much emphasis is put on that word about that we are actually one. as a
Right,
human
right
race.
on. Very cool, man. Yeah, I mean, the other, I'm glad you brought up the device part and the media part of this. It's really bizarre to me and interesting and kind of exciting in a way that such a challenge like COVID, something that has literally challenged us based on having to be apart from one another, that we got forced into this realm where we are utilizing media like this to stay connected right now in situations where we can't even see our friends and our loved ones. That it does give us the opportunity to unite at the same time that we're challenged with what I call, in my eyes, one of the other pandemics or endemic crises, which is, that it, it doesn't seem, it's a factual reality that technology has negatively impacted us beyond our ability to understand. The logarithmic equations that are used in the phone, the tracking device that it is, how distracted we are, the stress levels that go up based on overusage of devices and multimedia. And, as you know, I do other businesses. I have Launch Expos where I teach people how to build businesses online. And,
Right.
I'm on a business here in Costa Rica for tourism. And, it's absolutely imperative that I utilize it and that I market and then I put, advertising out there to connect and to try to make a living and keep people connected and try to educate people. But as with this podcast, mental health is a huge focus for me in terms of this project, based on the fact that I've said this in other interviews thus far. I really do feel like this is the other massive hurdle that we're going to have to go through in the next 2 to 7 years, which is really what COVID has presented us. I don't think a lot of people are in the know or in reality at all about.
Right.
And, my deal is really simple, man. I mean, I'm a hippie at heart, and, I believe that, hey, man, if the whole world is absolutely off their rocker and suffering mental illness at unprecedented rates, how the hell are we going to get anything together, people, in terms of anything? And I mean, the challenges that we have right now are unfathomable. I mean, we look at things like the World Bank and the IMF and global warming and COVID, and wow, man, are we challenged right now?
It is.
This was really the reason that I wanted to start this project, was to get people talking and get people to reach out digitally. If this is the medium that we're forced to utilize, my whole pitch is, well, let's do it really well, right? If we keep a positive mental attitude and there's content out there that actually, is enriching enough and motivational, hopefully at times, and, absolutely can lighten, the mood here. I mean, it's unprecedented, man. The amount of people, I was just looking at statistics the other night, and I'm going to do another podcast about this, but, it's dark stuff right now in terms of what's happening to people with mental health and physical.
Especially young people, Michael,
Mm-hmm.
who are supposed to be in school and should be having the social interactions, are now sitting in front of a computer and doing online schooling.
Right.
I mean, it's driving them, and it's really, they are hit the hardest too. I feel for each and every one of them. I can't even imagine how it must be.
I do too, man. I do too. I mean, it's I can't fathom what it's like to be a kid or a grom right now. It's,
And you talk about mental health. Can you imagine the impact it's going to have on the young people if they're going to be online for the next year and a half?
right.
Like, that's the time they're supposed to develop their social skills and social interactions, and they're going through so many hormonal changes. So for them to be sitting in front of a computer, not being able to interact with any of their friends in person, that's really hard.
It's incredibly hard, and it's not, we've been forced to deal with something that is not natural, not healthy. I mean, think about a wild animal. Here I'm involved with good friends here who are part of wildlife conservation, and I have a couple of friends actually who were involved with the scarlet macaws when they were almost extinct here in Costa Rica, and they're on the whole council and committee that basically saved the population of scarlet macaws here, in terms of making sure couples were, released from captivity, number one. Number two, taking their young, growing them up healthy and getting them in an environment where they could actually start to procreate. With that as an analogy, think about it. You take a wild animal out of the wild for a prolonged period of time. It is a known fact that with wild animals and many, thousands and thousands and thousands of species around the world, if they are in captivity for too long, you can't release them back into the wild. They don't know how to
absolutely
fly, So I'm thinking about the human race and children. Whoa, man, you're going to go through this thing that's going to be another 1.5 to 3 years. And then we've got to get into that space where it's going to be really odd once the vaccine's actually starting to happen. Okay, now they're back in school, but you just jumped from whatever age they were at. They started this thing when they were 13, and now they're 13 or something. It's like, whoa, man, what's going to happen? So yeah, I'm really hoping that in some way, shape, or form, we can actually provide some content for children eventually. I haven't really, thought deeply about how to go about that. It's a huge undertaking, but I'm glad you brought that up, and it's true, true about each other as well. And this is something that's really had me very, very tense, I have to admit. I had to really delve deep into my practice again in terms of breath work and, meditation and things that work for me personally, trying to readdress doing, music and painting and stuff, just based on the fact that I was feeling so much edgy tension about the fact that I was encountering so much intense energy in the last 5 to 7 years amongst adults only sharing negative information. We get together and what we're sharing is stress, and we call it friendship. Manners are gone. We don't say hello. We're responding to the device. We're talking to it while we're trying to talk to each other. It's all fucked up. You know what I mean? So, this is something I'm really hoping that we can try to maybe help folks with in terms of getting a different perspective, is to relax into it and realize that there is a huge global community out there, that can support you in terms of proper usage, to know best practices in terms of mental health about being online in these crazy circumstances of COVID.
Well, I just want to point out one other thing. I feel like, I've always wondered about, for young children, the transition from COVID, maybe the best healing for them would be having outdoor classrooms in nature. And you know what I'm saying? Like you take them from the computer to a classroom setting.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe the best healing for the young people is being outdoors with nature and taking that energy and being able to, you know what I'm saying, just taking that energy. And I think that would be like the perfect classroom setting, in some ways. And maybe it's a fantasy of mine, but I know that this has existed in India before, where there's been, I think it's in Shanti Niketan, which is in Calcutta. And there's a famous poet, philosopher from India, northern India, called Rabindranath Tagore. And he won a Nobel Prize, I think in the 40s, for literature. And his whole concept was, and I hope I got my history right here, his whole concept of education was in the outdoors, under a tree, in nature. And he felt like that would be the best place for young people to learn. So I'm just saying it's a fantasy of mine that would happen here. And maybe it exists in America, I'm not sure. But when you talk about mental health, we have to think about the young people who are going to be future leaders.
Absolutely.
So it's important to think about, I'm not opposed to therapy, and and I'm sure therapy is good, but you know what? I feel like nature heals, and we don't realize how powerful nature is, really. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like the trees give out so much energy, the water gives us so much energy, and most times we just walk past all of this, not even taking a moment to look at the beauty of a tree or just hear the sound of waves, because I feel like that energy is, it's free energy, and
Uh,
it's best thing for your mental health, man. You think about it. You know what I mean? I don't know if many people even think about that.
right. I'm so glad that you brought this up because, you said, well, you don't know if it goes on in America. It's ironically enough, about 3 months ago, coincidentally, wasn't looking for the content, but I found it on YouTube. It just happened to be on the homepage one night. I was having dinner. There are some folks up. I wanted to say it was in the Vermont area, maybe, where they were doing exactly that in terms of COVID. There are a bunch of educators, teachers that got together at a beautiful campsite out in the woods. They have like multiple lakes around them. And unfortunately, this is something for the privileged because they're
Right.
probably have to pay a pretty big ticket to have them go. But these kids literally agreed, and their parents wanted them to get out of the house and go up there to continue schooling. So think summer camp, school, summer camp. Now, obviously, it'd be an amazing feat to have it year round, but of course, because of global warming and the impact, we have certain circumstances where, if you're dealing with the dead of winter, this isn't going to be possible. You're not going to connect with nature in New England
No
with
way. Right, right.
sleep nice, but the concept, I'm so glad you brought it up because it's been proven in history. It isn't a dream. It isn't a fantasy. There are many, many, many leaders in many different countries, and it dates way back thousands and thousands of years ago,
Right.
where the whole purpose of education was to be outside. I've been fascinated with indigenous people my entire life, and I've mentioned that many, many times. I always do.
They
But
know more than we do.
and the idea,
It's kind of interesting because if you think about, you know, when people say, "Is it better now or was it worse back then?" And actually, everything is relative.
right,
If you think about it, everything is relative. It's not we are better off and they weren't better off. Guess what? They were probably maybe they didn't have much of a lifespan, but they were probably healthier, got less disease, and in many ways, they were probably happier and they coexisted. There was probably less destruction. You know what I'm saying? You think about all these things. When you think about all these things, relatively speaking, they probably had a much better life because they lived one with nature. And I think that's powerful.
yes. I mean,
They just, they lived off nature. Okay.
they were
That's
far more oxygenated.
right.
They were relaxed,
Yes.
sitting on the earth, literally, physically, to learn the sense of smell, dealing with
Walking.
elements,
Right.
in terms
Right.
of other elements, and having to deal with that to continue education. Indigenous tribes didn't stop teaching their kids because a storm front moved in. You know.
Oh, oh, oh.
And full well that I'm a big fan of Sadhguru in India,
Right. Right.
and I love it when he talks about this as well.
Right.
He has positioned it. At least this is my take on it. That right now this thing has produced a blessing in this capacity. We have this amazing, amazing, very serious problem, global warming. And how long have we been hearing about, green technology and the new Green Deal now in politics? And what we came to find out was that it was all a farce. For the most part, at 90+%. Most of the people who were, behind it in terms of monetarily, were scraping off the top and taking money off of it. So we haven't really done hardly anything to start really putting the right amount of CO2 and oxygen into the air to grow ice, But the idea that right now, think about it, in the forefront of the election, and politics is something I never ever really want to go into very deeply. Um, However, mixing what I enjoy in terms of watching Sadhguru give his talks for Isha,
Right.
is isn't it completely and totally opaquely obvious and in front of us that we have the perfect wake up call to do exactly what we should be doing to one, unite as one community.
Right.
Global effort in terms of ecology does bring us together, period. The idea that we need jobs. I was just watching the news and watching what's going on. I've been following financials lately, and I've been doing it for a long, long time in my life. And it's not looking good in terms of what's going on with all of the organizations that are controlling money right now in the world. We have, a stagflation. This is what economists call it, where we have an overzealous amount of lending going on, which stalls spending. And then we have an amazing amount of people, millions and millions of people unemployed, which are taxing the system with, an unprecedented amount of debt on the Federal Reserve. And so jobs is my point. And the whole point is, isn't it incredible that we can actually fare through COVID in nature? COVID is not in nature. COVID is in us.
Right.
Thing hosts on us. If we are socially distanced appropriately and you are out of doors,
Right.
and especially in different climates, it's a known fact COVID can't survive in many climates.
Like warm climates, no way.
So we thought. Now it's challenged us with that thinking, but this could produce amazing amounts of jobs if we started to educate outside, if we started to take care of people's mental health in terms of using the out of doors to bolster our immune system and get healthy and connect with the planet, we might be able to buy ourselves some more time on this little rock I call our neighborhood. You know what I mean? What do you think about that?
Well, I agree with you. This, planet Earth also is a living being, right? Most people, it's like, I feel like my stick is that there's the human beings, top of the chain, all creatures, large and small. The animals are very important because they're part of the ecosystem. And the planet, man, it's so beautiful. It's like there is, you know, there is nothing. I mean, I don't really know about other planets and other galaxies, but I know about planet Earth because I've lived here for 50 plus years. And I feel like every time I go out, everything I see outside is a much better view than everything I see inside a computer and inside a phone or any other gadgets out there. The only other thing I would say where I have my guilty pleasure is I like, since I'm a musician, I like pedals and I like that whole thing. But that's a good thing. That's a creative process. It's not something, it's something good for my soul. And if you're a musician, it's good for your soul. Any artist, that's my only really guilty pleasure. But other than that, I just think about the state of affairs of this planet and all these animals getting extinct. It just makes me fearful because, and the other thing I think about, you were talking about the COVID, you know, something like this happened 100 years ago, right? They say every 100 years something catastrophic happens, and obviously there was a plague 100 years ago, and with all the technology we have and all the things we know, or supposedly we know, your message is very simple. Bringing us all together as one community can take care of COVID, and also just like unite us together and take care of the planet. Because I think in some ways I feel like the planet is crying. The planet is unhealthy. And
Absolutely.
I think because the planet is unhealthy, it's finding ways to shut us down as humans because we're the top of the food chain and we are destroying everything.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not you and I, but whoever has the power, instead of saving what we have left, we seem to be just destroying everything. And that's like the sad part about this, this beautiful planet and the human race, which could come together as one and do something to just like save this planet and save, the human race.
Absolutely, man. I agree with you at 100%. I mean, you just made me think about something that the famous comedian George Carlin used to do in his stand-up on stage. And he used to go through this routine. I don't know if you've seen it, but when he says, it really makes me mad when I hear about people talking about how fucked up the planet is. Because there's nothing wrong with the planet, right? She's gonna do exactly to us what she's done hundreds of thousands of years ago. Every time we hurt her, she's just gonna erase us. And shifts and water comes in and new shit grows, and that's really true. What we've done is we've literally taken away from ourselves, limited ourselves the ability to have the beauty of what we've had based on fundamentalist thinking and fossil fuels. I mean, there's just no doubt about it, and how we're just raping and pillaging the earth. So it's heavy duty to consider this right now, with all these things converging. But that was really, and I realized for some people out there watching this vlog or listening to the podcast, I'm gonna have some haters. I'm gonna have some people who be like, whatever to that guy, ridiculous, all of this one. What a fucking joke, right? We're not one. We're a bunch of different sects of people. We're all in survival mode, and we got to do this and do that. And I'm gonna do things my way. I might not love you. That's how it works. And to me, that thinking right now is inane and insane. That it is part of the mental, illness, perplexity of us as human beings right now. We are so fragile right now. It is so obvious. And then we have the advent of all these other things like AI technology being the focus now. And, we are literally in an unprecedented moment as human beings. So I just really wanted to somehow get folks on, creators, speakers, teachers, artists, folks who are into physical fitness, people who are positive thinkers. I really do believe that without that type of thinking right now, what are we actually going to see in reality? You know what I mean? Right. Now, some people have kind of come at me in terms of, mind waves and live stoked. They're like, come on, man. You're like preaching this message to be positive all the time. And of course, that's not the reality. I've never said any of that. I did a famous interview with Tom Carroll, who's a 3-time Pipeline Masters champion. And, Tom and I laugh in the camera about that. We're like, yeah, not possible. You're a human being. Right. What we're saying is to make a practice of it, like you train, like you wanted 5 hits, so you wrote 100 songs. It takes a lot of work to get the good ones, that kind of thinking. And to lay in with the advent that if you have your choice, where are you going to be more happy? Are you reinforcing all of the treacherous events that have gone down and what we're facing, and to have a negative outlook and to be overwhelmed with fear creates mental illness? Mental illness then cripples our ability to do anything. Right?
Well, the other thing also is, part of self-realization sometimes is thinking about this human machine, right? Sadhguru talks about the human brain is like the best computer ever built, right? Uh-huh. And it's really interesting if you think about it. The mind, body, soul, and spirit, having that in as one, can actually make you feel positive and emit a certain kind of energy.
Absolutely.
But and again, I feel like every individual has some opportunity to help themselves, especially now with all the services out there, you can Google anything at your fingertips, and there's information out there. I'm just saying, if you don't know, you can know something because everything is out there. So you have to have an open mind, and you have to take care of yourself first before you try to take care of somebody else. And I'm not going to go into religion, but I will. I'm going to segue into that if you don't mind, because I feel like because I feel like for mental health, for some people, maybe religion is a good way to keep them together. And I'm not opposed to that, because you know what? Whatever strength you might find to be able to be in your body, mind, and spirit, that's important for anybody to be able to wake up every morning and feel good and say, I'm going to have a good day. And any choices they make, it's fine. You just have to find a choice for yourself, because the reason I brought up religion is because religion, whatever practice you have, could be a part of your mental health, and that could help you. And I'm sure it helps a lot of people out there.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
I think
so I want to add that as well, because I feel like nature it's a healer, but religion also can be a healer, because we've had since mankind found religion, there has been some amazing saints who have had amazing things to say, and people follow them for a reason. So religion is powerful for the mind.
There's no doubt about that. But I will say this, I have to be honest here. We have to actually, look at factual data. I mean, secular religions have also been the slow destruction of this planet.
Oh,
we've created armies. We've had cumulative death because of religion. So if you're going to say religion, I think what we're purveying on this thing is to replace that word with faith. You have
spiritual, some sort of a spiritual connection.
Of course, at that point,
practice.
If there's nothing about your view, perception, view, or practice with a specific religion that an individual practices that does anything to divide that individual from other human beings, right, I'm all about it. I'm all about it.
That's what I was talking about. I'm not talking about the divide thing. I'm talking about
on any given day, absolutely open to you. But I truly believe what you believe. There is an energy out in nature that we are not taking advantage of right now. Unbelievable in terms of COVID right now.
Right.
That we would want to hoard with each other, create super spreader events, and watch this thing just get way out of control when we had all this space,
right,
to exercise, to chill out, to connect to the earth. This is another thing that I tend to focus on, which is, and not to, mention him over and over, but this is something I love about Sadhguru as well, is the fact that, he has many, many talks and says it often that, we live on this planet and we do less and less and less and less to connect with it. We had all this time to basically take a nap on and I refer to just me personally, I see the earth as the female side of energy, male to female. Female being the creator,
Mother Earth.
Anybody asks me, anything about what I think about what's going on with global warming or the world or whatever, or, the storms we're having or whatever, I'll say stuff like, she's pissed. I'll say she. But what blows me away is the idea that we have had all of this opportunity to do things to combat what COVID has brought on. If we're in isolation, people are finding it more and more and more difficult to take care of their bodies. Why? I don't understand. I mean, a person, male or female, who was served a life prison sentence and is in a 13 by 26 cube, how did that person write 5 or 6 books and just get ripped and come out and somehow got out on appeal and has
power?
an author now. I mean, those stories are real. They've
Right,
happened.
right,
You know, the idea of physical health, mental health, really not being at the forefront of interest. You know, the first question I have for somebody is, are you even interested in maintaining any sense of mental stability right now, or are you just reactionary? You're precautionary, you're reactionary, and you're loaded with opinion, and then the thing is just polluting you. You're a robot to respond to this thing incessantly, to realize the dangers of that. But you know, I'm always talking about that, and I mean, I even mentioned it in some AdCom and Marcom I'm doing with Launch Expose, which is my business that I do online to teach people how to build businesses online. Has COVID presented possibilities? Question mark. And it really has. You know, it's just the problem is right now everybody's in fear mode. It's overwhelming. We're looking at things that have been unfathomable.
right.
And you hear that, you know, there are over 250,000 people have passed away based on COVID. We've got 13 million people infected. The U.S. is the leader in COVID.
Yep.
You know, and the reality, the true reality is we're not going to be out of this thing in a year to 2 years. There's no way. You know, think about it. We have to vaccinate the world. Whoa. Okay. We're going to do that in a couple months? I don't think so. You know, let's think about what it takes to do that. So a big part of what I'm doing here on the podcast is to try to talk about how to accept this thing intentionally, peacefully, in a strong manner, to create, you know, a sense of empowerment out of it, to learn the patience it's going to take for us to march through this as human beings, you know, and to look back into history and see times of trouble where the global populace was really under unprecedented duress. How did they get through it? What were the things that certain folks knew, certain folks didn't? Certain folks practiced, many didn't. So that's really a core focus on one. You know, I want to promote the idea of physical health right now. What can you do to bolster your immune system, right? Everybody's in mode and they're at home and they are reactionary and the sleep pattern is not good. Fear factor is way up. What happens to your immune system? It dips dramatically. So what happens? We're far more susceptible to be potentially a target for COVID.
Right.
You know, it's all dependent upon the choices you make, but to foster, you know, some information, proactive information about what superfoods can do for you, what certain liquids can do for you, what things like meditation, yoga can do for you in terms of your system, you know, and how calming down and centering can actually create muscle and strength. You know,
I don't know. Recently, I've sort of like changed my diet a little bit, and I'm trying to eat more so plant-based food.
Uh-huh.
I've realized. I mean, I'm trying to go vegan. I know it's really hard, but I realized how much better it is for you to stay alert mentally and physically. And also, the other thing I've started doing in the last month or so is barefoot running.
Uh-huh.
Because your feet and your brain, they're like connected totally. So barefoot running, not in the yard. Obviously, it's 100. I mean, it's like freezing out there. I have started doing it on a treadmill, and I've been like the last few weeks, I've been running about minimum 2 to 3 miles a day, barefoot running, and I've found the impact of that. I've found it to be really just energizing, and this something I've never felt before. And you know, we are sort of the same age, and to feel 25 at 50 is kind of difficult sometimes. So I'm sort of like leaning towards that to see how just an experiment to see if it's going to make an impact. And already in the last few weeks, I've found tremendous energy, just a euphoric feeling of just being connected mentally, physically, emotionally, and in a good place, being able to stay calm. So, everybody has to find their own practice, but I just thought I'll throw it out there if anybody is curious about how I'm sort of like living my life during the COVID times.
Right on. I love that. I love that. Well, very, very cool that you mentioned that. Running barefoot, that's, man, am I trying to get back to that myself? I mean, based on what I went through in terms of the reconstruction of the neck, I have a lot of nerve damage and it affects the lower, the problem is there's class 4 stenosis in there as well. So I don't get the amount of cerebral fluid around my spine that you get, that people with normal spines get. So as this thing progresses and, I'm getting older and, it's gonna tax me in many, many ways, man. It's a lot of hardware to have between the base of the skull and the T2. And feet are very sensitive. So sometimes it just can literally make me buckle. Same thing occurs with my hands sometimes. So, but I'm stoked that you brought this up because I too have been doing this intentionally to try to patiently move through that, and based on being here in Costa Rica, we're in a pretty, there's rugged terrain around you all the time. There's not like America where you step outside and it's asphalt and you go somewhere else and it's concrete. You have to actually find a park or a wood or whatever to go into to feel nature, with your bare feet. Here,
well, it's kind of funny you say, every time I go out, I always try to I'm always walking in the grass or walking in the gravel, and I'm not afraid. And there's a certain connection, between you and the earth.
Absolutely, there is.
Taking that energy in, and you think about indigenous people, right? You don't see them wearing slippers or anything, man.
No, man, have shoes.
Right. So, I mean, there is a reason why, and I feel like the whole industrialization period, we have all this technology, but guess what? You think about the number of people who are getting sick and obesity, there's so many things unheard of, which probably didn't happen 100 years ago. Maybe they had a short lifespan, but in general, they were happy and they lived a pretty decent life. They probably ate natural foods. Everything was, everything was like natural. You think about that. And I feel like that's the thing, man. If human beings can really be able to distinguish their purpose on this planet to make it better for them and to coexist with nature and animals, I think it's almost like going back to prehistoric times, man. I mean it in a way. I feel like you get so smart and you know so many things, but you still don't have common sense and you don't use the intuition which each one of us has. Nobody uses the intuition ever because it's bad, or it's almost like simple living, right? There are simple things in life which you can recognize. You can either recognize or not recognize. So I feel like interesting things, but interesting facts, but everybody is always dissecting things because there's somebody else has said, people don't think for themselves. People always want somebody else telling you what to do. You know what I mean?
And especially now, I mean, let's
absolutely right
into technology.
Right.
The problem incessantly is that we are preoccupied. Right. Technology is cool to a point, and then it's all incredibly destructive. That's the bottom line reality to it all.
You become a zombie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
right.
I love the fact that you brought this up, and I've said this to friends and acquaintances and stuff and people that, getting into deep conversations about what up. And they're like, well, you seem to have a point of view that we should be moving backward, not forward. And I said, absolutely. Use common sense. if you want a longer life, and we know that we don't do anything as a one community globally to unite with each other to do things that we can all do as human beings, not corporations, not business, to foster growth on this planet, to take care of things like the ozone and global warming,
Right.
what are we doing? You're not going to have any time because we'll be gone. Have you considered this? Money was really cool until we started to realize after the turn of the century the plan that the bankers actually had. If you're operating from a fundamentalist point of view,
Right.
you know, my question is, are you somebody who is in the poor health, physical health basket? Are you somebody who's in the obesity basket? Are you somebody who is struggling with mental illness? Are you in the opioid club? Because it's a fact that many are.
Yep.
Because they are literally based in consumption. You know, it's that thing. We want to get high, we want to get off, we want to avoid. We only want to consume it's a consuming situation with the advent of technology. It's unprecedented. Think about it. When we were children, the telephone hung on the wall and had a long cord if you were lucky enough to have one.
Yep.
Parents didn't want you inside for more than 3 or 4 hours on a summer day, right? Why? Well, because one, you're a child and it's healthy to connect with the earth and you need to go have fun with your mates. But, you know, mom or dad were also probably looking to have a little time, you know, for a little kisses and hugs and a little nookie while you're out. You know what I mean? Like it was healthy. You know, like you don't want to be around all day inside. You know, this is incredibly unhealthy and this is what it's done. And of course, now that we're in COVID, we don't have a choice. So this is really the reason I wanted to procure a lot of this content too, is how can we provide content that actually gives people practical exercises as to how to go about this? And the bottom line is, if the airlines are up, you can travel. That's reality. Whether the CDC says you should not or not, if testing proves that you do not have COVID, you have to get one on the way out to board. You get one on the way in, you do quarantine, and you do not have COVID. Can you go somewhere to be in nature right now, even if you were in a climate like the one that you're in, where, you know, the winter shuts in and that's it? The answer is yes. You know, I've been on the fence about this with my other business, Costa Rica travelhome.com. Not to make shameless plugs here, but it's to serve Juan in the vlog podcast, which is, you know, one of the main reasons I came here was to do two things. One, I wanted people to come to Costa Rica to have an epic adventure and see the country and see the true Puerto Rican lifestyle, and enjoy the absolute serenity of this place. But to partake in these working vacations where I was teaching people how to build businesses online if they wanted to move here. And then on the other side, that was Launch Exposed. And the other side is Costa Rica Travel Home, where I was going to focus on strictly health and wellness. And being a partially disabled guy, you know, it was really important to me that I reach out to that community, you know, because a lot of people are like, wow, man, how did you even come this far? And how have you done that? And a lot of it had to do with things I've been doing for years and years. But that was the sole purpose of my secondary business here in Costa Rica. And of course, it shut down. As soon as COVID happened, we've been in the same predicament. We fight back a little bit. Looks like things are going to go on. Then it gets pushed back and we lock down. And right now, the Ministry of Health in Costa Rica has said, come on in, which is pretty hardcore. It's a nail biter for us. It's exciting. We need the business. People here are suffering, and many, many businesses have closed forever, like in the States. We're in some serious jeopardy here. Well, the Costa Rican population, you know, I still consider myself a visitor, whatever that's one is, but the idea that you can improve your physical well-being. And that's something that I'm going to be promoting out there for people watching this vlog and podcast. And I'm going to be plugging that in the event that you are feeling the pressure of the situation. You can test positively in and out, and you are looking to improve your physical and your mental well-being and your spiritual well-being. I am going to be trying to run those workshops this season. In our season here, we're just coming out of our winter, which is a rainy season. So within 30 to 60 days, we're going to be approaching our quick summer.
Oh, wow.
So I'm really glad that you brought up diet. I'm glad that you brought up, the barefoot thing. I'm glad that you brought up connecting with nature, because I really do truly believe this is the only way that we're going to buy ourselves more time on this planet. There's nothing else to do. If we've got this many people who are unemployed,
Right, right.
there are so many hundreds of millions of jobs in all the facets.
Right. But the most important thing, Michael, the most important thing you and I have in common is, we are songwriters.
Right, right.
That is a part of people's mental health too. You write a song, if it means something to you, it's a way to connect people
Mm-hmm.
and help their mental well-being. Because, a song, the way you sing it, the way you write it, can connect you to people. And this is the perfect time for music. I mean, like, I know we're not playing live music, but people are looking to hear music because a lot of people are home and doing nothing. So if you're a musician, there's a great opportunity to just like record your song on YouTube or whatever media, share it with your friends on Facebook or whatever it may be. It's a good way to help somebody heal through their mental health too. I just remember that's an important thing we have in common.
There's no doubt about that. I love it, Deep. That's fantastic that you brought that up, man. It's so true. It's something that I've always felt being a musician. I mean, even since I was a little kid, I started music when I was really, really young. And I've just always had that feeling, and it was based on admiration and, admiring other musicians when I was a student and a young Grom, looking up to people that I admire. But that idea that it is a calling to help the human race, period. It is a language of healing, music, song.
Powerful. Another powerful thing to bring us together as one.
Absolutely. Looking back on it's kind of funny. I mean, I don't know if you recall way, way back then, you and I are getting to be old duffers now, but the first EP, Arrival was the name of the EP. And
right.
One of the tunes on there was called Lifeline. So totally in that same mindset right now, I haven't written any material in quite some time, need to get at it, but yeah, I believe the same. Music is a healing vibe. So if we can communicate on that level, there's no doubt we need to talk about some heavy stuff in my project here, on one. It's heavy shit, and we need to address it head on. And we have so many resources, like you said. I love the fact that you opened with that.
I just named several today, and also the other thing I just wanted to point out, just in terms of music, as singer-songwriters, and musicians, I feel like music is not a competition. Music is a form of expression, because if you're being a musician, if you're being a true artist and a musician, it needs to come from deep within, and it can't be just fluff. You know what I'm saying? You got to be deep in your evolution as a musician, because I feel like whatever you write, it needs to come from some place. Like, it was kind of interesting. Yesterday, I had the song I'd written a while back, and I was trying to connect the dots to the song, and I realized I wrote that song when I think it's a part of Syria. I think a part of Syria when they were going through some genocide and stuff like that, and people were being pretty much, they had to flee their country because they could never go back there. And like, I had I wrote this song pretty much on that. So I wrote the song about what was happening in Syria, and I just pulled it out, and I was like, wow, to be a songwriter, you always have to write about firsthand experiences, what you have experienced, not just personal experiences, but also global experiences. Because if you're not there in Syria and you read about it, it should make an impact to you, because, you can't just imagine what they had to go through. And I felt like I had to write the song. And then when I just pulled it out yesterday, I was like, oh my God, this is a song I wrote about Syria. Again, it has nothing to do with Syria. It has to do with global politics, and it's got to do with human beings who are just like had to fled there, human beings who lived in a place and that was their home, and they had to flee their home because there were bombs dropped and their houses were destroyed and they were being attacked. And it's just like it just it was, in some ways I felt like I was able to capture that, and I felt happy that I'm not just writing songs about myself and my personal life. I'm always writing songs about somebody or a moment in time.
The human condition.
Right, the human condition. Because I think for me, also, since I've been a social worker for over 20 years, that has been my strength to connect with people who have mental health issues. And in turn, I'm learning things myself. And by no means am I perfect, but I feel like my journey has always been um, a transition. I'm always learning something new about myself, but I'm also trying to help somebody else what they're going through, the challenges. And I would say most times in my 20 years experience, I have been successful because I think I've never held any judgments about people with disabilities. I've always felt like people with disabilities have more abilities than people without disabilities because they, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
Again, we're all one, man. You know, the human beings are one. We have to learn to treat each other as one and not be judgmental of who they are just because of this, whether it's their race,
it would be a hard gig to have if you were, if you did have an, if you were opinionated about working with disabled folks. I would imagine it'd be a hard gig to keep doing.
It would be, but I think the other thing, Michael, also is, you know, I came from India and I saw people, really poor people, and I always felt like people who were really poor and didn't have anything had always had an aura and had the most beautiful smile. And if they said hello to you, that I could feel that hello for days.
Right.
Because I would have the photographic memory of that person who said hello to me. So I feel like maybe that was something I took with me when I left the country, and when I came here and I worked with people with disabilities. I just treated them like they were just like my friend. It didn't bother me. You know what I'm saying? It didn't bother me. I was like, no judgments. I felt like I wanted to treat him or her like how they would treat me.
Right.
And I think that's how I always built my relations with all the youth I worked with. And lo and behold, man, I'm older, but I've learned so much more. And I'm always learning every day.
Well, that's a beautiful point to make, man. And I really believe that's an empowering thing to say on this episode of One, is to make that the practice of one's life. Continue to learn, continue to connect, continue to see the human condition. Use gratitude as your servitude to the planet and each other. You know, right now, like I said, we are so much more fragile as a human race than we ever thought. You know,
Right.
just looking back in history and saying, "Oh, well, that's not us. We went through it, and we have all this stuff, so we're not going to have this kind of problem." And now look at where we are. I mean, the numbers are out of control, and this is going to take an immeasurable amount of patience. But this is also the reason I'm constantly preaching love, man, as a hippy dippy trippy hippie, to literally use love as your primary source of energy and existence on this planet right now. It's so obvious. Mother Earth did not create everything here, interconnected on this kinetic and energetic level. Whether you believe, you know, and I'm certainly not going to poise myself between religion and Darwin. I lean more toward the Darwin side of things and science, definitely. But it is so obvious that every single thing about the planet herself and us is interconnected. The more that we have secular thinking,
Right.
this is what is it is the speeding of the time clock and the downfall of the earth in my book. And
Right.
people can agree with that or disagree with that. That's for them to do, but look at the reality of what's happening. So it's absolutely moving that you're telling me, what you're telling me, and for me to see it firsthand. I mean, I saw it firsthand when I went in with you to Boston. Although I was under quite a lot of pain, and I was going through
I
some
realize that.
hard
Right.
turns, in terms of coming back to Massachusetts and realizing that I was going to go through another big transition and have to move back here to kind of start a new life. I have to tell you, it was a magical experience to watch you. And it was magical to be with all the young adults that you had in the class that day and to be downtown in Boston, which I hadn't done in a long time. But I just want to say, man, I love you very, very, very much. And I'm very thankful for what you do there. To be a practitioner and a teacher and a giver of loving energy, and to try to help others with their emotions when they have emotional difficulties or disabilities for a living for 20 plus years, whilst you are the rock star that you are and a family man, is an amazing, amazing feat, brother. So cheers to you. And I really do have a lot of admiration for you in terms of what you do. So I just wanted you to know that.
Yep. Hey, Michael, thank you. I love you too, dude. Stay well, because you know what? I know you're going through a lot of things, and this was a fantastic opportunity. And keep doing what you're doing, man, because you know what? It's important that we as human beings need to connect in all levels and
Absolutely.
be kind to each other, love
Absolutely.
each other, and we'll get through these times. I know this dark cloud will definitely pass.
Absolutely, man.
Peace.
We need to have perseverance and patience.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean that's the whole reason I came to Costa Rica, was to make sure that health was a focus and to try to get through whatever was thrown at me. You can do that pretty much wherever you are in any circumstance you are. It just takes um, practice and patience, which is what I'm
Right.
promoting on the one podcast. So thanks so much, Steve. Much
Thank
gratitude.
you, Michael.
And for everybody out there watching the vlog, thanks so much for tuning in and checking it out. If you're interested in more episodes of One, or you have any thoughts or ideas in terms of what you'd like to see in terms of the content I'm producing on the channel, please subscribe to the channel. I'd be very, very grateful. And keep your eyes peeled on social media, Facebook and Instagram, in terms of new episodes. There's going to be an amazing lineup of folks coming on board to promote better physical, mental health, and inner spiritual well-being. So next time, pura vida, Tuanis, we
Peace.
are one.
Thank you.
Peace.